Next panel is going to be discussing the H-1B Modernization Act and what this means for our future in U.S. immigration. As mentioned, Rami is going to be here on the panel. Mr. Amit Nagle, are you here? Yeah? Come join the panel. I'll give you an introduction here. Amit is the Director of Immigration and Travel at Synchron. I believe you came from Pune today, is that right?
Yes.
Nice, thanks for making the journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. He's been a mobility professional for more than 20 years, so many of you would know him probably if you've been in the industry. I was looking again at his profile there on social media. Listen to some of the nice things people say about Amit here, right? Amit is subject matter expert, friendly, with a never say die attitude. I love that, right? Amit is one great professional who always keeps smiling and is never ever worried about extra workload. You see the smile that he had right there? Good smile. He diligently delivers with smile. What's this about smile? He's a smiling guy, right? He's got a good one. I love that. One person says, I would always want him to be my team member. Thought that was awesome. Good job. Also, Leena Damodaran, come, join the panel. Leena is Director of Global Mobility. Yeah, that's right. Please join. Director of Global Mobility and Employee Relations at Harman. You came all the way from Bengaluru, probably from one side. Yeah, 2-hour journey maybe. Another 20-year veteran in the mobility space. She's been recognized as one of the top women leaders in global mobility. And another colleague has said, Leena is the most wonderful manager I have ever worked with. She's approachable for any concern, be it professional or personal. She's very sensible and takes up the responsibilities. And Praveen Hebbale, where are you there? Are you coming? Come up. Yeah, Praveen. All right. Yeah, glad you're here. Praveen's VP of Talent Planning and Supply at EMIDS, right? Is that how? Yeah. Used to be? Today?
Used to be. I moved out of it.
Good, good. Well, sorry for the, being a little behind there. Sorry. He began his mobility career in the year 2000 at Infosys, and he's been a favorite speaker and panelist at the RelayZen and INS Zoom conferences for many years, and hopefully into the future. He's one of my favorite people here. He has deep functional expertise in global mobility, including the immigration, taxation, and overseas compensation, experienced in strategies, policies, processes, systems, a wealth of knowledge, and demonstrated strength handling all huge volumes of people moving and being deployed across many geographies. He loves to build teams. Ravishankar, Sathyanarayanmurthy, come on up. Welcome. You made the trip from Chennai, is that right? Oh, you're Bangalore now? All right, welcome. Thanks for being here. So Ravi is Associate Vice President, Global Mobility at Burlesoft. Again, another veteran, more than 25 years in this, in the mobility discipline. Made many strategic deployments. He's a global mobility expert, also human resources and compliance. I welcome the panel. Please.
At least for me, the rest is strictly deserved. Great to see such a large turnout, and thank you, Umesh, for bringing us all together yet again. When you said it was 2007 when you started, it looks like eons back, and I think I was there in the first conference, and I'm glad to be here in what, this must be the 18th year, or maybe a year or two in between for COVID, but despite that, I think it's great to be here. Great to be among all some old friends, colleagues, and new friends, and veterans of the industry like Rami and other law firms which are present here. My job is easy today. I have a very esteemed panel and a topic which is hot, which is US immigration. So I will keep it as interactive as possible and see where it goes from here. So first things, Rami, thank you so much for setting the context with what's Trump like to bring in, and that's the I would say, dread we always had. It kind of comes to the fore now. And this is like the bad dream, you suddenly wake up and realize it's true. Maybe yes, maybe no, we'll figure that out. But first things first, we are going to be speaking about the H-1B Modernization Act, which thankfully is up and running and is effective since 17th of Jan. So my first question to you, Rami, is that is it all done and dusted? There can be no going back on that, or can that still be tweaked, tampered with more executive orders, more regulations, or is the regulatory burden going to be really high to make any changes to that? Can we heave a sigh of relief, or are we still going to be concerned?
Yeah, no, I think at least temporarily, Trump can always try to reintroduce some changes, and he'll have to go through the legislative process where he has to publish in the Federal Register, get comments, and then of course then try putting it into sort of law. So temporarily, at least, I think it's good, and I think that's why the administration ran it, and I was monitoring it actually all the way through the last few days. They ran it through to make sure that they wanted to finalize this, at least for some limited protection and visibility, before Trump took over, because Trump could have made it much more severe. So for now, yes, no. The Modernization Act is something that you'll have to observe. It's basically it's the law. This is the guidance, and this is what the various immigration departments and agencies are going to monitor, follow, and there are some areas within it, though, that still offer some discretion, and the execution of it's always a little different. But for the most part, it is the law of the land, and I think it would take at least 6 to 9 months, I'm sure, to modify it. But I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Great. That's a big relief, and I think we all can start today on that positive note that we have a regulation which is done and dusted, which at least for some time in the foreseeable future will not be unlikely to be tampered with. I won't say will not be. So quick yes-no check. Amit, you happy with the Modernization Act? You believe it's good, or you want to wait and watch? Yes, no. Leena, same question, and Ravi, I'll come to you for the same. Yes, no. Happy, not happy?
Maybe it is neutral. It's very early to predict. Or
I think there are some positives in the regulation.
I think we were only preparing for the worst and getting ready how we can get ourselves equipped to manage the situation.
I see the immigration folks are a very guarded lot. I think Trump's done that to them. They were far more open, and they would be far more adventurous. I'm just kidding. But I think with all things legal, it's best to be conservative and understand how things flow. But let me start with this. I think there are several positives as we see it. I mean, we'll come to the other aspects, so not so great ones. But there are several positives as we see, right? There is fundamentally codification for a lot of things which were good practices, but still left the door open for some USCIS officer to take a different view and probably send out an RFE or even a intent of denial and stuff like that. Yeah, so is that the big thing, the deference thing, the contracts requirements codification, and the third party? We'll come to the third party, but what other positives? Rami, we'll start with you, and then we'll get to others and see how they're looking at it and how they're looking to implement it.
Yes, they put the deference provision in there, which is good, which is enshrined. It does still allow the government to go back, look at status, material facts, mistakes. So, I mean, how they actually adjudicate it could turn out a little bit different, but supposedly, at least under the Biden administration, it was more or less a rubber stamp that the previous adjudications were fine, we just move ahead. We can probably see some difficulty into that. But yes, no, thank God deference in there. They got rid of the itinerary. They put in some provisions that if a case is filed and there's an issue with the date, that gap will be taken care of, and they'll issue that so people aren't falling out of status. The cap-gap rule has been modified to make it much more generous for international students. So a lot of positive items in there, for sure. But for third-party consulting agencies, or companies, I should say, there is something that the Biden administration threw in that I think is going to really complicate it. And we've been used to this before. They are now going to look at what is the requirement of the end client, the place where the person is ultimately sort of placed. I'm not going to say work, but placed, if you will. What is the requirement for that position at the end client? In other words, what are the educational requirements? What are the experience requirements? What are the pay requirements? Why would there be a difference? So, and with FDNS's increased authority, because they sort of gave them, it's not a law enforcement agency, but you have to respond to them, you have to be diplomatic, which I hope all of you are and have been, but you have to be much more organized. And if you fail to respond or respond timely, you can receive a notice of intent to revoke or deny. So we're going to see more site visits. So in the end, though, I think we're going to have to go back to the old days, if you recall, possibly end client letters, contracts, things of that nature. I don't know exactly how they're going to roll this out, because I think a lot of end clients are going to be very concerned about co-employment issues, giving a lot of specific details in terms of what they will require for that individual. And the sad thing about this law is most of these are projects, and these companies are giving the consulting firms this project, go work on this and fix this, and they may have several different companies work on it. They don't want to interfere with the skill sets or the talent to execute it. That's why they're hiring the experts. And so to equate it back to what the end client would want in a similar position is going to be interesting, because a lot of the end clients have sort of gotten out of the day-to-day software development. They're just focusing more on the strategic, higher level, architectural things of that nature, planning, and they give up all their non-core functions, if you will. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting how the government's creating this artificial mechanism now to put more pressure on companies that file for H-1Bs to explain why they're justified a prevailing wage level 3 instead of a 4, why they require this or that. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic, and it's going to be complicated. These are not going to be easy RFEs or easy site visits to explain, but that is something all of you need to think about, and you need to coordinate with your end clients. You need to make sure that they're aware of this, because it's going to go to their general counsel, and you should probably start having these discussions now, because you don't want to do it in the middle of a few site visits or RFEs, et cetera.
Rami, I was hoping to get to the difficult bits a little later, keeping the mood a little more positive up to start with. But I'll come to the third-party placements as well as the additional teeth for enforcement, so to say. But Amit, getting to you, the positives Rami mentioned, like there is a difference thing. There is for amendments, there is much more codification of how they'll read. We've always used the Simio decision as a baseline, and now the codification gives you more base to do that. And are you already looking forward to that? Do you believe this will help you, and in what ways? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Positives we are focusing on, yeah?
Definitely this will help, but again, continuing to what Rami said, as it is a law, because what we used to observe in the industry or with the clients is they were reluctant to give any specific letters concerning to the particular individual. But now, if it is a law, even the clients will understand the requirement. So the business teams need to go back to the client and explain them the necessity of it, to maybe modify the master service agreements or the SOWs so that it will have that job duties in more detailed manner, which will help to get the applications more clear.
Leena, how do you see that?
Yeah, so I think the H-1 modernization rule focuses more on the adjudication processes of the policies and practices that were implemented in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think most of the IT industry, we are already following that, whether it is a Simio or whether it is in terms of specialty occupation, whether it is the degree requirement, most of us are already following it. I think the issue or the challenge would be when there are some roles which are hybrid and where you're not able to highlight the specialty occupation, or in certain industries which are not, where the roles are not very ambiguous and vague. I think there is where we will see challenges in. Otherwise, most of the IT industry, I think we are already following all these things. We should strengthen the practices better.
So you're almost there, so the positive portions of the Modernization Act don't impact you so much positively, almost, okay, because you're already there. Ravi, how do you feel about that?
The difference is definitely going to help us, right, in that. And again, on the documentation, I think we have been already beaten enough and more with all the required documentation on that. And the way to go is for how to get it, get ourselves prepared for the same, and how do we present it, right? And that is where we have, Rami and team to support, and the attorneys for us to be guiding us on the process. The challenge would be in, like as I said, with the end client, if there is anything to be touched and it is to be brought in for a discussion and all that, that may not be liked or it may not be welcomed by the customer. So managing that from that perspective is where I think in initial Rami's speech, he was saying that we have to work as a team and collaborate with the business and the end clients to make it happen as one team.
Sure, sure. I see this tendency to latch onto the problems we see, but not enough to celebrate the positives there. But maybe it is like Leena mentioned, most IT companies already do that, so it's not spectacularly different in that. But there's one portion which I thought was a little gray in the regs. Rami, and I'll ask you this. The language around specialty occupation, there's a lot more clarity. While it, on the face of it, looks positive and looks to allow width for non-related fields, people to be qualifying for the role, is there width for the USCIS officers to take a different view? Is it hard and like cemented enough that there's no ambiguity you can do it, or is there still some gray out there?
I still think there's some gray. I mean, in some ways they've defined it. They want to see that the education is directly related to the duties and the position. So I think in some ways that gives them some power, but you can also make the case for that. And I think the field is evolving so quickly. So many new positions are being created, new jobs that never existed, and a lot of older positions are being eliminated, or the requirements for those positions are not quite a bachelor's degree, for instance. So it offers clarification. It also allows you to provide documentation showing the connection between the individual's education experience and the direct degree and the direct duties involved.
Sure, sure. So there's an additional burden of documentation, but if you do that, you're more likely to get through rather than be questioned on that. Right. So Amit, Leena, I ask you this. Are you doing anything more than credential evaluations to support this fact? Because the onus is now shifting to the employers to defend that this person or his or her education qualification is related to the job that's being performed. So are you doing anything more, any more creative ways to get to that end?
Yeah, so specifically selecting the SOC codes, that's the base of the H1. So we can align more roles, which are the new roles, we can be aligned to the type of business what we are doing.
So what I would want to add here different is working back with the business team in terms of the nature of the job requirement or job description, in getting the full details or accurate details from the business side, and then working closely with the applicant to try possibly asking all possible aspects to understand the specialization from their side or the skills that they have and the requirement for that project. And then working with the attorney to make it happen. And of course, education equivalencies plays a vital role in getting this done.
So now that there is a need for additional documentation to support the connection between the person's education or qualification to the role, is the credential evaluation enough with whatever WorkX and all that you can describe that? Is that enough, or is there a need for more?
So we also add in some professional training. If the employee has gone through, we give a justification of his work experience versus his degree qualification versus the client requirement. So explanation on that, then your credential evaluation, of course, we do provide with that. And if he has a prior experience on the same field, like he's done before, he has an electrical engineering degree, but he has been working on computer science projects in his earlier company or previous companies, those experience letters. So I think most of us are doing it, so we try to bundle up the application in such a way that the specialty occupation comes up
much more prominently. Rami, you had something to add?
No, it does, it's one of the positive things. It does give you the flexibility. With AI, things are evolving. People are coming in from liberal arts degrees. I think you can make the case. We are sort of going into uncharted territory because you have a new technology, how you prepare and how to utilize that technology, and what foundational background you need for that is evolving. Even the great Stephen Jobs at one point stated that for technology, maybe having a liberal arts degree is the best thing you can have. If you think about it, it's not a technical degree, but with the advent of AI and all the new positions that are being created, creativity is an important component. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how they adjudicate all this. But yes, with some creative lawyering, you always have to be accurate, of course. I think you can put up good documentation and make the case for things that are outside the scope, if you will. But it would be kind of nice just to have someone with computer science that's going to be a software engineer. It's kind of simple, easy.
Right, yeah,
So-
But that's what you would like to think and see, right? I mean, yeah, we'll get to that. It's a little bit of a question mark how this will, but mildly positive is how we term it, this whole piece, or specialty occupation language, or unsure?
Here in this, the challenge is how progressively one has attained that required skills and knowledge and specialization is the challenge here, right? So here is where, again, our dependency is extremely on the attorneys who are supporting us, as well as the team that works back with the business in getting the details. In terms of building the story, right, it is not about how many documents we give and how much we do that, right? So it is about how logically we explain, like what Rami was saying, the same thing, right? You need an arts understanding to build a great system, right? And today, without UA and UX, you cannot do anything, right? So UA is in UX, for you to see that, you have to see it from the eyes of the customer, right? So the ability to display that progressively this individual has learned the skills or the and that he has building the story on that is where the real challenge lies, right? If I'm sitting as an officer and I'm seeing that, if I'm able to get convinced that this person has this interest in the subject and he has, put his time and effort in studying or doing selective courses or, certification like Leena mentioned, then we should be able to manage it. But if you are looking, if you are being a programmer, then you must have a computer science degree. If that is the approach that you are taking, I think that a direct match fit may not be the reality, and with the changing and evolving technology and the trend or the skills that are needed, right? It clearly says that you have to have these skills that is essential for that.
Thanks, Ravi. So, mildly positive, there's a good opportunity here. We need to do a little more documentation, is how it sounds like. Moving to the big mountain in this act, which is the third-party placements and the connected issues. You spoke about that already, Rami. I mean, the two views I'm picking up from people I speak with, right? One is, like Amit mentioned, it is a requirement for the H-1B, so clients would be should be more open to giving us more documents to support their needs. But then enough clients to say, I really don't care. You're a vendor, you've got to deal with it. Otherwise, I don't want any H1 folks. I'd rather have only L1 folks here. Right? That could be one way clients could react. No client would love to take on a risk on behalf of a vendor. If at all, they'd like to keep an arm's length distance even further if they can get away with that. And then when you compound that with the ability for the site visits to happen at the client site, that's like a logarithmic multiplier of the things the clients will not want to see. What are your clients telling you, Rami, and what are ways around this one? And both of this combined with where the clients get pitchfork right in center of this whole compliance bit.
We've seen this before. It is disruptive to the client. The clients get very concerned. But, at the end of the day, they all work with consulting companies. They're accustomed to it. But you're going to have strong communications, a lot of public relations with your end clients. And be prepared in terms of if you do have more FD&S visits. And by the way, they're not just going to be asking the employee this time, what are you doing, what are your experience, et cetera. They're going to be asking colleagues and others or managers or even the end client. It'll be interesting to see how far they can try to stretch that. So I think education and preparation is very critical for this, because the last thing you want is a meltdown or someone that's unfamiliar with this process, and they get spooked, and they'll say, well, look, we just got to get away from any company that deals with H-1Bs. And I think that's not really, I think that's pretty well understood in the industry that H-1Bs are critical. They are part of the consulting industry. They're embedded even within U.S. agencies, within state governments. So I don't think it's a surprise, but I think just a reminder that, look, I think these FD&S visits may be more intensive. They're going to ask more documents. They're going to walk around a little bit more. And if this happens, we have to, of course, be honest and accurate, but let's look prepared. Let's look like, we know what we're doing, and, we have control of the situation. I think because I think that can basically be a very positive thing for the end client as well as for your company. Because if you look organized, you have everything ready to go, and your competitor is probably at the same location and they're not, you know, the end client's going to say, you know, I'd rather deal with a company that is going to create less liability, less disruption, less follow-up visits from FTNS. Because if they get what they want and they're satisfied and you can establish a good record, that's a very positive thing for your company. So good, truthful, organized information. It's always good to have a point person that can help coordinate on-site as well as head office.
Sure, sure. So Amit, Leena, and Ravi, I ask you the same question. How are you folks reacting to this? Have you started speaking to your clients? What are the client reactions? What are you hearing from your account managers or client partners when they speak to the end clients? Just like to get a sniff test of what's the reaction like.
So we have started sensitizing this to the business heads, leads, to enact or to check with the clients if we can get this. And specifically, I don't think this is a panicky situation, but yes, definitely we have to be more vigilant on the approach what we are taking for filing the cases.
Yeah, so in terms of the FDNS site visits, increase in these visits, so we already have been doing, we do our internal audits, and then we do communicate to the client through the client relationship manager that we've checked our records, everybody is in order. We do these health checks quite often, at least twice a year, to check all the parameters of your petition, your PAF, your I-9s, etc. And we communicate that we have done this. So that gives the confidence to the client that we are compliant and we are following these regulations. What we also do is we prepare our employees in case of an unannounced visit, how do you respond to? Because most of the times they panic and they don't give the right answers. So we do that sessions as well with our employees. In terms of third-party placements, we also in terms of documentation, if the client is not very supportive in submitting the document, then we ask them to redact whatever is confidential and commercials, etc., and if they could give, or a client letter. And the employee-employer relationship is something that we concentrate on, documenting that the employee is reporting to our managers. We have those weekly connects and progress of the project more than he interacting with the client. So those are some things that we do.
Ravi, quick thoughts?
Sure. So what we do is we try to have as many as town halls that we can have with our on-site folks, right? Either by account-wise or the client-wise or location-wise, we start having town halls with employees so that we continuously engage with the employees and the business managers on-site for required communication. The good thing is here about is this audit when FDNS happens, assuming it is a big client and big projects where there are other competition is there in that place, right? Or even for the same customer. They are familiar that FDNS audits are happening. It is not, as of today, it's not a surprise or a news for them, right? For example, in a year, you roughly get about 15 to 20 audits, depending upon if you're a large size, then you may end up getting 25, 30 or 50 numbers, right? So the customers are also kind of used to it, right? And again, one other good aspect is that typically in on-site, the teaming up or one team as one employee, one company employee, the coordination and connection is also effective and efficient. And this is where we also take the help from the HR teams to connect with employees. So they socialize and then they also share that information that, I had an FDNS audit in my client site or my office or even home address. So the communication happens and this helps us from a preparedness from the customer side or for the employees in terms of managing the audits.
Yeah, true. And I think this, while obviously it increases the compliance burden on companies and got to do more, it could also be a differentiator for good companies versus the not so great ones, right? If you were to place people at a client side and there are multiple other vendors, you could probably go up front and say, my people who are placed at your site have this ABCD and here are the documents, so we are compliant on all these aspects, so look at us more favorably. That not only gives comfort to the client, but also they look at you more positively the next time when they have some open slots, etc. So there is that opportunity too. But needless to say, I think there will be a lot of hesitation among clients. They'd like to be least involved, but that they've got to live with that.
I just want to add one point here. So having said this, 10, 15, 20 audits that we have had, I want to tell in full confidence and faith and happiness that none of these audit has resulted eventually in a unfavorable situation for us, right? At the end of the day, what we see is finally we are sending mail to the employee and the business manager saying that, we had this audit, we haven't not heard any, observations or comments from the auditors. This only certifies and confirms to us that our process is strong and our documentation is clean and we are doing everything right.
Yeah, there he just sold Birla Soft. We'll take that. But Rami, Rami, quick check. Does the government have the money to increase the number of audits? Or is Dodge going to fund more auditors or what's it like? I mean, last time they just did not have enough people to go around, right?
Yes, FDNS has grown in size quite a bit, and I think it's a priority, so they will find the funds. But USCIS in general is a fee-driven organization. It doesn't really have money from Congress per se. But as you know, the fees continue to go up higher and higher, so who knows if they will try to add some other enforcement type situation and penalty. But I personally think that they will. They will find the resources and the money to make this happen. The question is, you also have a tremendous burden of going after all of the undocumented individuals. And does the government have all the time and money to pursue everything? What's the priority? So, but FDNS needs to justify its existence. They are there to protect U.S. workers and the process and the whole regime. And so, with that said, manpower is probably going to increase. And if you look at Project 2025, which was written as sort of a roadmap for the Trump administration, if you go to an extreme, they were talking about each and every application would have to be vetted and approved by FDNS before being approved.
Oh, well, that's crazy.
I don't know how they can do that, but something short of that.
Musk will bring in some automation, AI, and
Right.
like to get that done. But I think we've already short on time. I'm not going to even look at Jake. I know what I'm going to get a look back. But here's the thing. There are a couple of other interesting aspects which I recommend you folks look on. There are some interesting changes on the J1 residency rules which could be beneficial. The cap gap is a big positive if you're looking to hire grads, etc. There are also changes on the way cap exempt cases are handled. Now, if you're working, fundamentally working in areas for a company which is cap exempt, there are some ways you can leverage that to your benefit. So there are a few things I recommend look at that. But there's one last question before we sign off on this panel, Rami. And there are about 150 to 160 million. That's the US workforce. Mm-hmm. And I look at the workforce on H-1B, it's about 500, 600K. Roughly, looking at where you see them, to get the numbers from, 0.3 to 0.8% is what it's saying. 0.8% of a country's workforce. Why is there so much focus, so much scrutiny on this small piece of action? The fees keep going up. Everybody's favorite punching bag is H-1B. Why?
Good question, but these are very high-paying jobs, right? They're critical, and when...
Easy targets, therefore?
I'm sorry?
Easy targets, therefore?
They're well-paying jobs. I mean, it puts you in the upper middle class, so it's a protected,
So one could take a view, just for the sake of argument, encourage them a little without saying, so the Indian government does it for small entrepreneurs. They don't consciously audit them hard enough to allow them to prosper because 6 on 10 fail, right?
Right. No, it is a drop in the bucket, and I think Elon Musk had stated that. I think, for 130 million workers, and I'm trying to remember the figure of how many IT workers there are in America, something like 15 million to 20 million. So it is very small. Mm-hmm. And if you look at some of the greatest CEOs that we have in the United States, from Google to Microsoft to the former Pepsi CEO, I mean, a lot of these folks came in as H-1Bs and have changed the country and changed the company. The founder of Zoom was an H-1B. So, I mean, and that's the point that Musk and these others are trying to make. But it's a real interesting thing that why are they hitting so hard on the H-1B in particular, you're right, versus all these other areas, especially when you look at the graduate schools where 60+%, 65 I believe, are foreign nationals or foreign students or first generation ethnics. It's a little bizarre, but you have some groups out there that are well-funded that are just trying to disrupt this whole thing. Because the other thing that you have to look at is there is this scare that some of these folks are grabbing or getting knowledge in America and then taking it abroad. and creating jobs in industries abroad.
All
So
right.
that's the issue. Okay, Jake tells
We
us
got a
to be
break, we
quiet.
got a
Is that
break, you
okay?
guys. Thank you. Thank you for the panel.
Excellent panel. Thank you very much, people.
Excellent work. Great insights. Crystal ball, right? Everybody's there reading the tea leaves and figuring out what's going to happen next, hopefully, we know. But thank you.